that I've never had the chance to meet before. Now, I happen to know about her. I've read about her. I've seen her on friends' social posts and always thought she looked like someone I'd love to meet. And today I'm going to meet her live with you, and that's Cindy Gallop. Now, if you haven't heard about Cindy before, she's the founder and CEO of a company called Make Love, Not Porn. And as I've started to research her today in preparation, for this interview, so I didn't make too much of a fool of myself in front of you and frankly, Cindy, I went through a lot of your history and her profiles and videos I'd seen about her, and I just had to share a couple of these highlights because I frankly think they're awesome and hilarious all rolled up into one. So first off, Make Love Not Porn, which Cindy will tell us more about if you're not familiar with it, is a pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference company. And I think this is such an interesting subject around trying to educate people that, frankly, hardcore pornography is not sex. And this has a huge impact on the way that society, and especially younger people and culture, could be rolling out today. And I think it's a really special and powerful thing that she's doing. On a far more kind of just entrepreneurial level, her tagline on Twitter is, "I am the Michael Bay of business. I like to blow shit up," which I think is totally hilarious and awesome. But a lot of people couldn't back that up. But as I kept digging into more and more and more of her background today, she does, in fact, back up blowing shit up, which is why today's episode is all about plowing through shit. And with that, welcome to another week of Oh Shit. So everyone, I'd love for you to meet my new friend, Cindy Gallop. Welcome to the show, Cindy.
Thank you, Freddie. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I love your apartment, by the way. I can't help checking all the cool stuff there. I'm sure there's as many interesting stories in that room as there are about your fascinating career. I'd love to pick a great starting point to start this conversation, and I think maybe a really natural one. If anyone's out there Googling you now in real time or looking, after seeing the show, basically your TED Talk in 2009 when you kicked off Make Love Not Porn. For anyone who's watching right now, if you haven't seen it before, it's really awesome. You should watch it. It's great. It really explains the premise of it. It's inspiring and will have you definitely chuckling along the way. I have to just understand, like, how do you even get to the point of starting a business like this? It's fascinating.
Sure. So Make Love Not Porn was a total accident. I never consciously, intentionally set out to do anything I very bizarrely find myself doing now. The story started actually a year, 18 months before that TED Talk. And it came about because I date younger men. They tend to be men in their 20s. And I began realizing through dating young men that I was encountering an issue that would honestly never have crossed my mind if I had not encountered it so very intimately and personally. I realized I was experiencing what happens when two things converge. And I want to stress the dual convergence, Freddie, because most people think it's only one thing. I realized I was experiencing what happens when today's total freedom of access to hardcore porn online meets our society's equally total reluctance to talk openly and honestly about sex. When those two things converge, porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. So I found myself encountering a number of sexual behavioral memes in bed. I went, whoa, I know where that behavior is coming from. I thought, gosh, if I'm experiencing this, other people must be as well. I didn't know that because, 11, 12 years ago, nobody was talking about this. No one was writing about it. This was me in isolation as a naturally action-oriented person going, I'm going to do something about that. So 11 years ago, as you've mentioned, at TED 2009, I launched basically this tiny clunky website that I put up at makelovenotporn.com. That in its original iteration was just words. So the construct was porn world versus real world. Here's what happens in the porn world. Here's what really happens in the real world. I became the only TED speaker to say the words "come on my face" on the TED stage, 6 times actually in succession. The talk went viral as a result. And it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated. And I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. Thousands of people wrote to me from every country in the world, young and old, male and female, straight and gay, pouring their hearts out. And I went, oh my God, I now have a personal responsibility. I need to take this forward in a way that will make it much more far-reaching, helpful, and effective. But I also saw an opportunity to do what I believe in very strongly, which is that the future of business is doing good and making money simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I saw the opportunity for a big business solution to this huge untapped need. And I use the word big advisedly, Freddie, because even then, back in 2009 at concept stage, I knew if I wanted to counter the global impact of porn as default sex ed, I would have to come up with something that at least had the potential one day to be just as mass, just as mainstream, and just as all pervasive in our society as porn currently is. Mm-hmm. So thinking big right from the get-go. And so what I decided to do was, and I just want to emphasize for our viewers today that Make Love Not Porn is not anti-porn because the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. If we did, amongst a whole host of other benefits, people would bring a real world mindset when they view what is simply performative produced entertainment.
I feel like it's like, someone who watches the movies too much and they think that's what real life is like, or watches a little too much bowlers on TV and think that's what Miami is about.
Do you know, Freddie, you're absolutely right, because what I turned Make Love Not Porn into, therefore, and the way I put it is that if porn is the Hollywood movie, Make Love Not Porn is the real world documentary. Because I turned Make Love Not Porn into the world's first and only user-generated, human-curated social sex video sharing platform. So we are effectively what Facebook would be if Facebook allowed you to socially, sexually self-express, which it obviously doesn't. And in pioneering this category of social sex, what we're doing is we are socializing sex, making it easier for everyone to talk about in order to promote consent, communication, good sexual values, and good sexual behavior. And so we call ourselves the social sex revolution. The revolution part is not the sex, it's the social.
Trying to get it out there so that the educational part. I think that, again, I think you see this a lot at every age group now. Whether it's search terms showing up or the types of things showing up in people's browsers histories, people worry about running across horrifying things there, but that's not the reality of, I think, what intimacy is for people every day these days.
No, and actually, here's the really important thing about what we're doing at Make Love Not Porn, Freddie, that actually nobody else is, because I think the reason MakeLoveNotPorn.com in its original clunky iteration got the extraordinary response it did was because MakeLoveNotPorn.com was a manifestation of me. And what I mean by that is it was very simple, straightforward, truthful, down to earth, utterly non-judgmental, and it had a sense of humor. Yeah. We never get to have conversations about sex within those parameters. The moment we do, the floodgates open. And so what Make Love Not Porn, its current iteration, does is, as I said, we are the social sex revolution. And so we are social. And what that means is that actually, if you're watching our real world sex videos, those are the only parts of the site that are not safe for work, obviously. But everything else, our homepage, this is a site where if someone sits down next to you, you never have to slam your laptop shut. It's okay. It's Make Love Not Porn. And what infuses everything we do is actually a wonderful quote from Larry Flint, the founder of Hustler. Yeah. Because many years ago, I was booked to interview Larry as the opening session at an entertainment conference in LA. And I was in the green room with him beforehand, running through the questions I was going to ask him. And one of the questions was going to be, I asked him, Larry, you pioneered in an industry where nobody has ever encouraged a pioneer. And I was going to go on and say, what would you say to entrepreneurs today to encourage them to do the same thing? But he interrupted me. He stopped and he said, I never thought of myself as a pioneer because I just didn't think I was doing anything wrong. bloody love that attitude.
Yeah.
That is the attitude we bring to Make Love Not Porn. And that is why we are so welcomed, because we are socializing and normalizing sex in the real world. And oh my God, does everybody want that?
And do you feel like it's making an impact? I mean, you said, I mean, it's a big hill to climb, a lot of shit to plow through, if you will.
Yeah, no, and I know we'll come on to that, but I have to tell you that as an utterly unique venture, we have a unique capability at Make Love Not Porn. We have the power to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better. Our members write to us every day and tell us how we change their lives. We've saved marriages, repaired relationships. Survivors of sexual abuse, rape, assault write to us and tell us we help them reclaim their bodies, become sexual beings again. People who've survived cancer with, resultant impacts tell us, mastectomies, erectile dysfunction, we helped them find a sex life that didn't have to be penetrative, etc. And, we got a wonderful email from a young man at the end of last year who, and what I loved about this was he was a blue collar worker. He works in a factory in a small town Midwest, but because we are a mass market brand. And he said, I don't normally write emails. It's very unusual for me. I had to write to you because I came across your website in an article on playboy.com. He said, I'm a big fan. And he said, my habits have always been, go to Pornhub, watch a video, boom, done. He said that completely changed when I was watching one of the videos on here. I've never seen anything I was so taken aback by. He said this was two people. It was an actual connection. It made me question my own viewing habits. I went beyond that. I questioned my own sexual health. It hasn't been good for a while. I'm starting on a journey of self-discovery, and this is all due to your website. And I wanted to write to you guys and thank you. I mean, we get amazing emails every day. So we, even as a struggling bootstrapping business, we are having that impact in the world. Imagine that impact at scale as the Facebook of social sex globally, because that's what I want to get to.
How it's interesting. You talk about being kind of a fledgling startup there. As you're also a marketer. For those of you that don't know that part of your background, you're like me, a recovering agency person, as I like to describe it sometimes. Is it challenging to even market a business like that? How do you get cut through? Do you run into the same obstacles, let's call it, traditional porn run into? What is that like?
Right. Oh my God, Freddie, you have absolutely no idea. So the one thing that I really did not realize when I decided to start Make Love Not Porn was that I and my tiny team would fight a humongous battle every day to build this business. Essentially because every piece of business infrastructure, any other tech startup just gets to take for granted. We can't. The small print always says no adult content. And this is all pervasive across every single area of the business in ways that people outside the sphere don't realize. I can't get funded. I can't get banked. It took me 4 years to find one bank here in America that would allow me to open a business bank account for Make Love Not Porn. Wow. Every single tech service that I need to use to operate my video streaming, video sharing platform, be it hosting, encoding, encrypting, the terms of service always say no adult content. In every single case, I have to go to the people at the top of the company, explain what I'm doing, beg to be allowed to use their service. Sometimes they let me, sometimes they don't. It's a very labor-intensive process. Our biggest operational challenge is payments. PayPal won't work with us. Stripe can't. Mainstream credit card processors won't. Even something, we had to build our entire video streaming platform from scratch ourselves as proprietary technology, because existing streaming services, off-the-shelf components, will not stream adult content. I'm so jealous of friends who built video startups on top of Vimeo. Quick, easy, simple. I can't do that. Even something as apparently simple as finding an email partner. MailChimp won't work with adult content. Went through 6 or 7, got rejected till we found SendGrid who would. A couple of years ago, I needed a contract UX designer. Perfectly standard job description, put up on Upwork. 20 minutes later, Upwork took it down, told us we're not allowed to advertise jobs there because we are Make Love Not Porn. Okay, and the thing that is the most frustrating is we can't advertise either. Facebook And actually, all the social platforms will not accept advertising for sex-related ventures. Let me just refine that statement, because there is a massive gender bias here. Facebook will not accept female sexual health and wellness and female-founded ventures advertising. Because I'm sure we'll come on to, the shift have to plow through to raise funding, but that is in stark contrast to male sexual health and wellness platforms. So Roman and Hims.
I'm actually shocked by that. I guess I shouldn't be, but I'm surprised that Facebook's an issue there as well.
Do you know? And I'll come back to the point I was about to make about the gender bias, but actually, let me tell you why that is, Freddie, because I think you and your audience will find this interesting, because it comes from a much more holistic place. The young white male founders of the giant tech platforms that dominate our lives today are not the primary targets, online or offline, of harassment, abuse, racism, sexual assault, violence, rape, revenge porn. Therefore, they did not, and they do not proactively design for the prevention of any of those things on their platforms. Those of us who are most at risk every single day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, the disabled, we design safe spaces and safe experiences. I and my team spent literally years concepting and designing Make Love Not Porn before we ever built it, because we knew if we were going to invite people to do something never done before, socially share their real world sex, we had to think through every possible ramification of that to create a completely safe and trustworthy space. And as a result, by the way, we operate not only unlike any other adult venture on the internet, unlike any other internet venture, period. But what that means for giant tech is that the way they address those issues is entirely retrospective. They have to retrofit solutions, and so they address them through reporting and regulation. And so what that means is, in an attempt, they don't bother to differentiate between porn and, an ad for a menopausal product that is vaginal lubricant, for example. Okay, everything is a blanket. If it's anything to do with sex or adult content, boom. And where this gets really ridiculous, I mean, you already know, I'm sure, in terms of people's social posts, if you post a photo of you breastfeeding your baby on Facebook, your account gets shut down. Okay, that's how much they don't differentiate. But even more ridiculously, in the commercial sector, because I hear about this all the time, if you are a female-founded lingerie or swimwear brand, and if you are, as you should be these days, absolutely for all sizes and for full diversity, and you therefore in your advertising use diverse models, the nudism algorithm goes apeshit on larger women in bikinis showing more skin and tells you can't advertise. Seriously, Freddie. Seriously. I tell you, I know a bunch of female small business owners who can.
That's wild.
No, it's outrageous. At the same time, obviously, hate speech, violence, racism flourishes, and what that means is that there's a whole worldview about open, healthy sexuality that is not being allowed to be communicated to the benefit of all of us on those platforms. And this is very frustrating, because I want to go back, if you don't mind, Freddie, to my gender bias example. So I struggle to raise funding. And I struggle because I represent the triple whammy of unfundability. I'm female, I'm older, and I have a sex tech startup. Okay, I mean, that's 3 strikes and I'm out. Now, if you look at male sexual health and wellness, Roman and Hims were both launched in 2017, 3 years ago. Okay, they are both sexual wellness platforms that deliver erectile dysfunction solutions. Solutions to male sexual health problems. What that meant was that their male founding teams had zero problem raising a ton of money from male VCs. Okay, Roman raised in their first year, they raised $88 million. Okay, Hims raised, I think, a very similar figure. With that kind of money, at the same time, you have no barriers to advertising, okay? Because male erectile dysfunction solutions are seen as medical. Anything to do with female sexual health and wellness isn't. So they
So the female, they
advertised.
see it as some kind of performance
Yeah,
or pleasure
yeah,
thing or something.
yeah. And so they were able to advertise the shit out of those brands. Anyone who lives in New York can tell you Grand Central takeovers on all the subways. And by the way, these are huge posters yelling erectile dysfunction, genital herpes, premature ejaculation. I and my fellow female sex tech founders, banned by the MTA. Okay, so Polly Rodriguez, the founder of Unbound, did some beautifully safer work. They sell sex toys. Okay, beautifully safe work, illustrative posters. MTA went nope. My friends at Dame Products, who make sex toys, are suing the MTA under the Freedom of Speech Act for refusing to take that. They're very tasteful posters. The MTA would not let Make Love Not Porn advertise on billboards. Okay, we deliberately created a dedicated URL, socialsexrevolution.com, completely safe work. Our manifesto's up there. Our billboards,
not even a transactional sex, it's
just
manifest.
just and our billboard, all it said was join the social sex revolution with that URL, and the MTA went nope. And they said to me, their media agencies, Upfront Media, they said, it doesn't matter what your creative says. It can be the safest thing in the whole world because it's you. You're not allowed to advertise. And at the same time, genital herpes is all over Grand Central, erectile dysfunction. But here's the serious business point, Freddie. That is a massive business inhibitor. Okay, so Roman and Hims advertising all over social, all over the traditional media channels. They have both just raised. Roman was able to expand into an overall health and wellness platform, Row. They've just raised $200 million at a valuation of 1.5 billion. Okay, Hims is launching a SPAC. It's valued at $1 billion. From zero to unicorn status in 3 years. That's what I can do with that kind of funding behind me. Because by the way, that level of funding would solve my advertising problems. When you tell the MTA you're going to write them a $10 million check, you'd be amazed how quickly those
You're creative, I bet. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, a lot of people up the chain start to pay attention and find ways to get you approved. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, too funny. And by the way, so tell me about how you're trying to get around this. Because I have to be honest, as you're sitting here, part of me is trying to focus and be very present in the moment. Another part of me as an entrepreneur is frankly going, how do I help? Because this frustrates me for you, and I'm trying to problem solve, and I'm like, no, be present, problem solve later. So tell me about what you've been trying to do so far.
So this is absolutely about finding ingenious ways to plow through shit, Freddie. So I set out 6 years ago now to raise just $2 million to scale Make Love Not Porn. By the way, I made that minimum viable ask because I knew it was going to be challenging. My biggest obstacle raising funding is the social dynamic that I call fear of what other people will think. Because it is never about what the person I'm talking to thinks. When you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and Make Love Not Porn, nobody can argue with it. The business case is clear. It's always their fear of what they think other people will think, which operates around sex, unlike any other area. And by the way, that represents an additional difficulty, Freddie, because I know my investors are out there. They're very hard to find by the usual means. Okay, any other founder looking for an investor can at least do their research and target. They can go, oh, so-and-so's publicly said they want to invest in my sector, clean tech, whatever it is. They have a publicly viewable portfolio that indicates very clearly they're interested in what I'm doing. Nobody out there at the moment is going, bring me sex tech. And sex is the one area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside. The people you think would totally get it don't. The people you thought were total prudes do. What characterizes my investor is one thing and one thing only, and that is somebody's personal sexual journey. How much you get it with sex tech depends entirely on your own sexual lens based on your own sexual history. And that's why I put what I'm doing out there all the time, because I have to find those synaptic connections being made that will draw them to me. But anyway, so as I set out to raise this round, I knew it was going to be challenging. So I realized that I would have to do what I tell other entrepreneurs to do, which is when you have a truly world-changing startup, you have to change the world to fit it, not the other way around. And so that was the point at which I like to say I got into the Steve Jobs business of reality distortion. Because if reality tells me that I cannot scale Make Love Not Porn the way I want to $1 billion venture I know it can be, I'm going to change reality. And so what I mean by that, Freddie, is that I deliberately, 6 years ago, began defining, pioneering, and championing my own category, sex tech. So I literally wrote the definition of sex tech. If you Google sex tech, I'm result 1 on page 1. And sex tech, by the way, is any technology or tech venture designed to innovate, disrupt, and enhance any area of human sexuality and human sexual experience. I coined the hashtag sex tech. I didn't invent the term, but I'm directly responsible for propagating the hashtag as widely as it's used today. And I began speaking at tech conferences all around the world on why the next big thing in tech is disrupting sex. Because I thought at base level, if I just say this loudly enough, often enough, in enough places, people start to believe it. Now, Freddie, I began doing all of this purely to legitimize my own category, to create a climate of receptivity to get investors to fund me. But then 2 further accidents happened. Because, just like Make Love Not Porn, everything in my life and career has been a total accident. I've never planned anything. So the first accident was, as I was demarcating and delineating this category, I began seeing for myself the enormous potential within it, not least financially. Yeah. And the second accident that happened was I gained a reputation as a global champion of sex tech. And so sex tech founders began writing to me from all around the world. I mean, literally every day I hear from a sex tech founder somewhere. And they write because they have all the same problems I do. Can't get funded, can't find a payment processor, write for advice. And I realized that I have unique access to extraordinary sex tech deal flow. And so that was the point at which I went, okay, in order to get my own startup funded, I'm going to have to get the entire category funded. And so in a seemingly counterintuitive move, because I could not raise $2 million to scale Make Love Not Porn, I decided to raise $200 million to start the world's first and only sex tech fund. Because if nobody else is going to, then I will. And by the way, Freddie, obviously I haven't the faintest idea how you raise a fund. And I went, I'm going to do it anyway. I mean, literally, this was an act of desperation. It was a last resort. So then I began doing, again, what I tell other entrepreneurs too, I began making it real. I gave my fund a name. I bought the URL, registered the company. The name of my sex tech fund derives from a quote by Chairman Mao, who famously said many years ago in the interest of gender equality, women hold up half the sky. I think that's relatively unambitious. My sex tech fund is called All the Sky Holdings.
I love it.
And the derivation is deliberate because I have a dual investment thesis.
Yeah.
If I can raise this funding, the first thing I want to fund is radically innovative sex tech startups founded by women. Because the most interesting things in sex tech today are coming from female founders. We are finally owning our sexuality, finding unique ways to leverage it in business terms, because we get the enormous market that is women's needs, wants, and desires, historically deemed too embarrassing, shameful, taboo. And by the way, Freddie, tap that huge primary market, you tap a huge secondary market of extremely happy men. Okay, so that's the first area. And then the second thing I want to fund is every business obstacle I encounter is a huge disruptive business opportunity in itself. I want to fund the infrastructure of sex tech, what I'm calling the sex tech full stack, because the first payment processor that embraces legal, ethical, transparent sex tech ventures like mine cleans up. The first hosting provider, the first e-commerce platform. I want to fund the ecosystem of sex tech to do 3 things. A, to create a self-sustaining portfolio for all the sky, because any venture I fund will obviously need all of this. B, to be a bloody huge revenue generator, because every sex tech venture around the world, plus the entire adult industry, needs this. And C, and I use a Peter Thiel term here deliberately, to monopolistically build out the entire underlying ecosystem to make sex tech the next $1 trillion category in tech. So that's what I want to do.
I love it. I mean, again, if you don't like the rules, break all of them and smash them in their head, and then rebuild them in the image you want. Again, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this before, but as you were going through this, I was like, you need to solve all those barriers. And if you had those barriers, all that infrastructure you described, and ready to go, then you're not just money, you're a smart partner. So here's a question that's not clear to me. Would you, to make this possible for this kind of new generation of sex tech companies, would you exclude, let's say, the hardcore porn that you're not against, but maybe is not helping you legitimize the rights of
no, but Freddie, we're talking about two completely different categories.
Yeah, so there's nowhere near it. I just want to make
porn
clear.
Is porn. Porn is porn.
Yeah. This is
I'm
sex tech.
talking about sex tech. I'm talking about, as I said earlier, my definition is any technology or tech venture designed to innovate, disrupt, and enhance human sexuality and human sexual experience. Good. And that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it's clear to everyone that you're keeping that, and that's how you're going to get all these companies to say they need to understand there's a difference, and that's not always clear to everyone. So
no, and that's exactly why I decided to define it 6 years ago.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's great. And so as starting a new fund, so you're breaking one category, you've broken into another one. So how's that journey?
I should just explain my situation with regard to that, because there I was, and again, as I say, very freely admitting this was a last resort. I can't get funded. I'm going to have to fund myself, basically. Yeah. And so I then began absolutely making all the sky happen. And what's interesting, Freddie, is that, the meetings I took demonstrated that what I surmised was correct. There are more people willing to fund the category than a single venture within it. And that's for a couple of reasons. The first is that, with my fund, I do all your due diligence for you. Because we are talking about a category nobody is familiar with, but that I can serve up on a silver platter, and after 11 years working in it, I am absolutely a domain expert. And then the second reason is because putting money into a sex tech fund is at one remove from actually investing in something to do with sex, which also makes it more palatable.
Yeah.
So I was making all the sky happen. And then I actually raised the $2 million I was looking for Make Love Not Porn from a very unexpected quarter, which was our original angel investor at Make Love Not Porn. Because when I had the idea of MakeLoveNotPorn.tv back in 2011, back in 2009, I then pitched it for 2 years from 2009 to 2011, because that's how long it took me to find one investor who got it, put up the seed funding I needed to build the platform. He's been amazingly supportive ever since. I mean, sadly, by the way, asked to be anonymous. He works in finance. Wouldn't benefit him for people to know that he backed us. Exactly what I'm out to explode, by the way. But he's a professional investor, and he travels the world and talks to high rollers. And whenever he met anybody that he thought, might be open-minded, he would very kindly pitch us to them. And that was how he found out for himself what I already knew, which is that we are literally the final frontier of investment. And so he and I were having dinner. This was at the end of 2017. And he sees Make Love Not Porn's potential, and he was just gobsmacked. He said to me, Cindy, the guys I meet, and sadly they're all guys, he said, the guys I meet will invest in literally anything else. Guns, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, gambling, bring it on. He went, the moment he mentioned sex, whoa. And he was so frustrated. He went, I'm going to put the money up myself, have $2 million. And my jaw hit the floor, because I was never going to go back to, I wanted to bring him more investors, but he really wants to see us succeed. So I had to park all the sky and hit the ground running to deploy that for Make Love Not Porn. And what I realized was, unfortunately, I cannot bootstrap my way out of my current situation. Overcoming the infrastructure problems are really expensive. Okay. I have to, because I can't use, if I could use PayPal, if I could use Stripe, we'd triple our income overnight and Make Love Not Porn without doing anything else. Okay. We have to use adult industry specific payment processors. Their rates are extortionate, because the adult industry has nowhere else to go, and we have no choice either. And so $2 million doesn't go very far. So I am setting out to raise a round of serious funding for Make Love Not Porn, because actually I can overcome all of these problems. If I could just raise one round of the kind of money that gets flung at white bro founders all the time, as soon as I can do that, hire a full-time team to run Make Love Not Porn, get it stabilized, I am absolutely going back to All the Sky because I am committed to raising that fund because, oh my God, as every day goes by, Freddie, I just see more potential.
I just can't help but feel that maybe it's not going the traditional path, talking to family offices and things like that a lot of funds do, and maybe it's made up of a lot of smaller, 250 to 500,000 organ investments from people, to your point, that this impacts them in some kind of personal way, and I think there's probably a lot more of those people out there than most people, maybe not you, but most people realize. And it may be you're probably like all the other unconventional things you've done in your life and career. You may take a very unconventional path to get there when the time is right.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, because you're absolutely right, Freddie. Those people are out there. Here's the difficulty, because it is the same difficulty that means that we can't crowdfund. Okay, fear of what other people will think. Successful crowdfunding requires people willing to very publicly rally around something, and then very publicly invite everybody they know into it to create the network effect. That's what powers crowdfunding. People will totally do that with, a piece of hardware, a video game, a movie. They will not do that for anything to do with sex. And I knew this anyway going into this exercise, but I'm afraid I have proof of that. So several years ago, my friend Karen Khan started the wonderful I Fund Women platform to help female founders get funding. For our viewers, ifundwomen.com, absolutely check it out. If you want to support female founders, or especially if you're a female founder who wants to crowdfund, something. So Karen had been a member of Make Love Not Porn for a long time, and she asked us to be one of the founding companies on the platform when it launched. And, I was thrilled she wanted us there, because I can tell you traditional crowdfunding platforms all know adult content, but, I knew going in that it was not going to work for us. We raised $50,000. It was a nice little chunk of change. But the number of people who wrote to me through that platform and said, listen, love what you're doing to Make Love Not Porn. I've crowdfunded you this much. Please don't publish my name anywhere. That's the problem with, with trying to generate the network effect around this. That's why lots of small investors.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, well, you could go and pull it together. But maybe this needs to be anonymous. But you're right; it's the network effect is what makes that kind of approach work. So I got two kind of final questions for you, being conscious of time. First one, if you could go back in time and kind of approach anything in a different way based on everything you've learned, and it was 2009 again. 2010, whatever, what would you have done maybe potentially differently?
Do you know, to be perfectly honest, Freddie, I don't think I would have done anything differently. Okay, no matter how hideously difficult it's been, as the saying goes, the path appears. My path appeared. And the thing that keeps me going, two things keep me going. One is the fact that we hear from our members and our Make Love Not Porn stars, our contributors, every day, telling us how, Make Love Not Porn is sexual self-help. We change people's lives through sex. I see every day the traction, the proof of concept. And by the way, bear in mind, the biggest thing they have to celebrate at Make Love Not Porn is we're still here, 8 years after launching the business, in a world where 70% of all startups fail within the first 5 years. That gives you some idea of what we could do with serious funding. But secondly, and by the way, I forgot to check this with you before I came on your show. Am I allowed to use profanity just once?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, fantastic! Because to have real impact, I've got to use a four-letter word, and I never quite know how shows feel. But the thing that most keeps me going is a dynamic that I call "I'm going to fucking well show you." You tell me it can't be done, I'm going to fucking well show you. You put us on a path, I'm going to fucking well show you. And actually, Freddie, the reason why I now feel more confident setting out to raise a serious round of funding to Make Love Not Porn than I ever have before is because it's taken me 11 years to, as I say, I don't wait for things to change, I make them change. There is now more openness and receptivity to what I'm doing with Make Love Not Porn. Now the world knows what an issue porn as default sex ed is. There is more open-mindedness around sex tech now that I have defined the category and helped elevate so many brands within it. That I had to go through all the shit I went through to
Yeah.
actually get to this point, and have done all the things I did to open up, the marketplace and the investor mindset to benefit myself. So no, I wouldn't have changed anything.
I can appreciate that. You're like the Freddie Laker of low-cost aviation, but for sex tech instead.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And so perfect segue. So now it's today. A new female founder comes to you. They want to get into sex tech. What's the number one bit of advice you would give them?
That's very easy, because I talk about this all the time, and it really plays into what I'm doing as well. The single most important piece of advice that I have to give to any sex tech founder is take yourself out of the shadows. And what I mean by that is people unconsciously internalize, without even realizing they're doing it, society's disapproval of what they're doing in this arena, that then negatively impacts their ability to do the kind of business they want to do. So I'll give an example. Many years ago, a young woman came to me with a sex tech startup. And there are many of these now, but at the time, back in the day, she wanted to redesign sex toys, make them cool, sell them online. So she's talking me through her startup, and she said, and the thing is, Cindy, people are really embarrassed to be seen buying sex toys. So we're going to package them like this, very discreet. And I said to her, okay, hold it right there. You need to go right back to the beginning and reconcept your startup from the ground up. Because you need not to say to me, people are embarrassed to be seen buying sex toys. You need to say to me, we're going to make people not embarrassed to be seen buying sex toys. When you concept and design a venture around existing societal bias and prejudice, all you do is reinforce it. Yeah, I refuse to vow to bias and prejudice because I want to change it. And the reason for that, Freddie, is because, and again, this is absolutely what I say to investors. Oh my God, the money there is to be made out of sex. But the money there is to be made in two areas, the second one of which right now no one even thinks about because they don't even think it's possible. The first area is obviously money made out of sex generally. Phenomenal market, utterly recession-proof, never goes away, okay? but the second area is, oh my God, the money to be made out of socially acceptable sex. Because when you do what I'm talking about, what I Make Love Not Porn are doing, socialize and normalize all of this, you then normalize people really happy to be seen publicly buying into your goods and services, then publicly doing what they do with everything else, sharing, reviewing, recommending, advocating, and publicly badging themselves as brand ambassadors. That's the $1 trillion financial future that I'm going after, socially acceptable sex tech.
It's getting the mainstream angle. And that's where the mega bucks are. I love it. That's great advice. So I want to thank you for coming on. That was really fun. I knew I was going to enjoy that. Like I said, when we had a chance to chat before the show, hopefully we'll get to have a drink sometime soon in New York. For anyone who's been watching or listening, whether you've been watching live or now watching this, after on one of the different social platforms we're on, if you leave comments in the comments section, I'm very happy to pass them on to Cindy and we can see if we can get them answered in the comments. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a like, follow us, share it with your friends. It's a great way to help support some of the things we're doing and actually help support Cindy, because I think what she's doing is really awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I hope some of you guys out there learned some interesting things. I certainly did. Thank you again, Cindy, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Freddie. This has been great fun. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for watching Oh Ship.
Bye.